The shooting at East High School sparked a conversation about school safety and school discipline. Even after that, a bill at the state capitol argues expulsion may not be the answer.
What we know about expulsion is that the decision to expel is life-changing.
Denver Mayor Michael Hancock has no control over Denver Public Schools, but now, as his term ends, he's trying to get voters to shake up the school board.
What in here is actually going to reduce rates?
A lawmaker who sat on the committee to reduce utility rates has questions about the bill to reduce utility rates. And a pandemic pastime continues, 950 miles later. We're hitting the road. Next. Second chances for students. Public school policies have changed in recent years to give troubled students more chances to stay in school before being punished with expulsion. Second chances apparently also exist for state lawmakers. Earlier this month, an attempt to make it harder for a school to expel a student failed at the state legislature. Our Luis de Leon looks at a second effort despite recent incidents at schools that have led to more questions about leniency.
Okay, welcome. Let's start off first.
Testimony for the Democrat-backed House Bill 1291 may have been rather quick Wednesday.
I got suspended, which impacted my grades.
But the stories were personal from students who have gone through school discipline.
We are only seen as our behaviors and given no say or even asked if we're okay.
Among other things, the bill would require hearing expulsion officers to complete a training that covers things like adolescent brain development and trauma-informed practices. It would also require districts to provide all records of evidence in a potential expulsion case at least 2 days before it's heard. The goal is to make the decision leading up to expelling a student more fair.
What we know about expulsion is that the decision to expel is life-changing.
Dana Flores is the Colorado campaign coordinator for the National Center for Youth Law. She says she's been guiding a coalition of students, educators, and parents working on the bill.
And I saw how hard it was to bounce back from expulsion. As a parent, I want to send my kiddo to school and not experience fear that he will be expelled for an unjust reason.
State data shows that there were 794 expulsions last school year. Breaking down where those expulsions stem from by category, 155 of those last year were related to dangerous weapons. But detrimental behavior was the leading cause at 214, which essentially means behavior that puts students or staff in danger.
One of the challenges that our leaders face is balancing that right of an individual student with all of the rights of the other students in that building.
Brett Miles is executive director of the Colorado Association of School Executives, which does not support the bill.
We're not opposed to training, certainly not opposed to getting information to parents within 2 days before their expulsion. We just felt like we couldn't stand up and say, let's support this, because it didn't send the message that this was fixing any of the issues that we want to tackle or that we are currently having to tackle on a daily basis.
Those issues, Miles says, are rising in more severe incidents in general in schools, especially after coming back from the pandemic. Marshall, this bill unanimously passed the House Education Committee today. It's on to the House Appropriations now.
I know the state legislature is different than school boards,
right?
But they are treading into a turf that is going to impact school board elections. I mean, even after what we've seen recently, this is moving through that would make it harder to expel a student.
Right, and we hear Miles's argument there. He also goes on to say that there's attorneys usually involved in this particular process, and that makes it a bit more careful in their opinion. But we've heard from so many parents as well while covering this particular issue saying that they're worried about the true impacts that expulsion could have on a student's future.
As we've said with multiple bills, in a few years from now, if this makes it through, we may be having a discussion about, hey, remember what they did a few years ago, and looking at lessons learned, perhaps.
It'll be interesting.
Thanks, Luis. Transparency when meetings happen in private is a bit difficult to see. Parent advocacy groups have been asking Denver's school board to be more transparent about their school security plans. Last month, the board met in executive session when it discussed bringing Denver police officers back into high schools. At a meeting happening now, the board will once again go behind closed doors to discuss school security. The board will get legal advice on new security arrangements at McAuliffe International School. Earlier this month, McAuliffe Principal Kurt Dennis sent a letter to parents detailing what he called improvements to school safety. That includes having adult volunteers sign up for shifts to monitor exterior school doors and make sure they're locked. McAuliffe also plans to add more security cameras and another school psychologist. That executive session also has this interesting tidbit. Board members will meet with an attorney to discuss, quotes, personnel matters related to Superintendent Dr. Alex Marrero's contract. That's all it says. It could be positive about his contract or not. We'll let you know when we know. The dust still has not settled on the board's last executive session, the day after 2 East High School administrators were shot and injured while doing a pat-down search of a 17-year-old student. The board spent hours in that closed-door meeting before voting to suspend a rule banning Denver police from being school resource officers. School Board Vice President Aonte Anderson told Next that during that session, the DPS superintendent told the board that Mayor Michael Hancock's office was threatening an executive order reinstating SROs regardless of the board's decision. Hancock says that's not true, and on KOA Talk Radio this week, he called for the board to be replaced.
I never, not one time, had a conversation with anyone where I uttered the words or suggested or threatened to issue an executive order. This is a very dysfunctional board, and it needs to be corrected. And the only people who can correct it are the voters.
Just like the mayor, school board members are elected and can only be voted out of office or recalled by voters. Hancock did not say which board members he wants to see out. 3 seats will be up for grabs in November, including Anderson's at-large seat. Anderson has announced plans to run again and said he's disappointed that the mayor is, quote, criticizing the duly elected board. The legislation that is supposed to reduce our utility bills had its first hearing today, and we still do not have an answer as to how much it would reduce our utility bills if passed, which is kind of important when that was a big reason for a special legislative committee created to help reduce our bills.
I can't say this is going to save you $50 next year.
In the first hearing for the bill to reduce your utility rates, the focus was on how much would it really reduce your utility rates.
Can you give me an estimate of the savings that your bill would provide?
Republican State Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer sat on the special committee to review utility rates and extensively questioned the bill that came out of that committee.
Can you point to me in the bill where we're showing that rates are going to go down?
It is not that everybody gets $50 off their utility bill next month. It is attempting to provide rules and more guardrails that the Utilities Commission can use to have a better understanding of what is driving costs and to control those costs a little bit better.
The bill, which is in part because of our coverage on high Excel bills, would limit what expenses Excel and other utility companies could pass on to customers. That part of the bill would make minor changes to our utility bills. The biggest aspect would be an attempt to have Excel and other utilities have a cost sharing of high gas prices.
The fuel sharing costs in particular are the thing that would potentially cause our owners and the people that provide us with capital to make different decisions about where they deploy it or what they charge us for that capital.
Xcel Energy Colorado President Robert Kenney testified against the bill today, saying it would raise rates and create uncertainty for Xcel because of what it might mean for decisions by potential investors.
We have to borrow that capital to be able to make those investments, and if it costs us more to get that money that gets passed on to customers, we have to make different decisions about how we will allocate capital.
There's a problem if we can never move forward on changes to the regulatory process without the permission of the regulated. That's not how it works.
I got a chance to talk with Xcel Energy Colorado President Robert Kenney after his testimony. Tomorrow, we'll look at why he believes this bill is more about forcing electrification than it is about lowering utility rates. Colorado's Democratic supermajority can pretty much pass whatever bills they want this session, and they've done just that, passing multiple gun bills over Republican opposition. There's been widespread party support to pass bills mandating 3-day waiting periods for gun purchases, raising the age to buy a gun, and to expand the state's red flag laws. But even among Democrats, there was not enough appetite to push through a ban on so-called assault weapons. That proposal failed overnight after hours of testimony from hundreds of Coloradans. 3 Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee sided with 4 Republicans to kill the bill. Democrats were not swayed by major last-minute changes. Democratic State Representative Elizabeth Epps, the bill's House sponsor, proposed amendments that would completely overwrite the bill and instead ban the sale of rapid-fire trigger activators or bump stocks. Those are attachments that allow semi-automatic weapons to fire like machine guns. Both those amendments failed. Even if the bill had passed committee, it was still a long shot. Democratic leadership had expressed hesitation over the bill, and Democratic Governor Jared Polis has said he thinks it's a decision best made on the federal level. Denver tax dollars are not spent on that never-ending construction at Denver International Airport. Airline fees, parking, retail, concessions. That's what's paying for the construction. And today, Denver's auditor took airport executives to task for poor management of that money on the more than $2 billion Great Hall project. This is the project that remodeled the main terminal and is supposed to eventually move all security checkpoints upstairs to the 6th level. Today, Denver's auditor's office released the findings of an investigation into the last 5 years of renovations. Yeah, this project started in 2018. DIA fired the first contractor in 2019 and paid them $183 million to go away, kind of like the Rockies did when they traded Nolan Arenado and $50 million to the Cardinals. The audit is critical of the airport's management with the second contractor, Hensel Phelps Construction. The audit says the airport might have sidestepped a fair competitive bidding process in the scramble to find the new contractor, but there's not enough documentation to verify. Auditor Tim O'Brien says his office asked why records of the decision to hire Hensel Phelps were so limited. The response was that airport executives told airport managers to keep records to a minimum because of the number of open records requests that the airport had received. An easy way to keep the public out of the know is to not create a public record. There's more. According to the auditor, as of last August, Hensel Phelps had hired 34 subcontractors for $70 million worth of work, and only 11, 1/3, had written approval from the airport. The auditors believe the airport was likely overpaying for those contracts by not reviewing how Hensel Phelps made those hires.
To say the airport hasn't been overcharged, I would say that's erroneous, and we have hard evidence that they are. To what extent, we don't know, because HP couldn't give us all that information.
The underlying finding, I would say, with this audit, as you've heard me say, it's on us to strengthen our processes and our documentation.
DIA managers said the city's attorney's office gave the green light for the Hensel Phelps contract and that as the contractor, it has final say over the companies they work with. Even though DIA does not use taxpayer money, the airport must get city council approval to spend the money that it generates at the airport. The Great Hall project is going to last a great while, at least until 2028. It's April 20th. That means a statewide effort to perform acts of kindness in honor of the 13 lives lost at Columbine. And a Boulder student on a mission to take in the sights of the city, all of them.
You know, with walking every single street, I will have seen every single part of Boulder.
Lace up your shoes. We're going for a walk. Next.
It was a chilly and windy spring day across much of the Front Range, far eastern Colorado. We're still tracking wind gusts tonight between 20 and 30 miles per hour around the urban corridor. And that red flag warning, we have another about hour and a half to go across far southeastern Colorado for the strong winds and the low humidity levels. As we look outside, a little mix of the sun and clouds out there. And once again, temperatures only hovering in the upper 40s and low 50s for us this afternoon. Slightly warmer off to the eastern plains, but we're going to kind of settle into this unsettled weather pattern for the next few days as another storm system rolls in. Tonight, most of the action is up into the high country where we still have a little bit of light snowfall. That's going to roll out late tonight, and by early tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., you're waking up to a mix of sun and clouds here in the city. The cloud deck in and around northern Colorado, and then here we go again, the snowfall pushing back in with this next storm. First hitting the high country, and then by about 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow evening, a quick rain snow mix here in Denver before it switches all to snow by late tomorrow night, and that's going to linger into the start of your weekend and your Saturday. Winter weather advisories go into effect for the northern and central mountains for about 4 to 8 inches of new snowfall coming your way Friday into Saturday morning. 52 on deck tomorrow, so still running about 10 degrees cooler than average. We'll be tracking a few flurries for you on Saturday, but the tail end of your weekend looking good, upper 50s with some more sunshine before more wet weather moves in next week.
Thanks, Danielle. 24 years ago today, the world watched the tragedy at Columbine High School unfold. 12 students and 1 teacher were killed on this day in 1999. Nearly 24 others were hurt. As is now tradition, Columbine students did not go to school for class today. For them and others across the state, the day has become a day of service. Governor Jared Polis made it official in 2019. Today, more than 1,200 Columbine students and 100 staff led more than 50 outreach service projects around the metro area. And tonight, as we do each year, we remember the 13 lives lost too soon. When Carter Snelson's sophomore year at CU Boulder was sidetracked by the pandemic, he picked up walking as a hobby, and he stuck with it. 950 miles later, he's walked almost every street in Boulder. He's got about 50 miles left and some big plans for how to cross the finish line.
Setting a large goal may seem like it's impossible to do, but if you break it up into small steps, you can achieve it. My name is Carter Snelson, and for the last 2.5 years, I've been doing this walking challenge that I've created for myself, where I am attempting to walk through every single street in the entire city of Boulder. This is the full map of what I've done so far. The first walk I did was August of 2020. During that first semester of my sophomore year, I really just didn't want to get COVID. You know, that was a really big part of the decisions I made during that year, and so it really led me to find something that I can do by myself that I really enjoyed. I kind of just started going on these walks just to explore the small parts of Boulder that was around the university, but then I really just decided to start exploring all of Boulder. So I've done a rough estimate of the amount of miles I've walked so far, and it's about 900 miles. So my plan is to finish next week Friday, which is April 28th. And I've planned out pretty perfectly, actually, where the last walk I will be doing will complete the entirety of Boulder. You know, given that it's 52 miles, I predict it'll take around 16 hours. And so I'm gonna start at like 3 in the morning. If somebody told me, hey, you should walk 1,000 miles, I would say like that's impossible. But breaking it up into 10 to 15 mile walks, you know, hundreds of walks later, I can say that I've almost done that. It is extremely fulfilling and something that I will, you know, obviously remember for the rest of my life and be proud about for the rest of my life.
Through the lens of Corky Scholl, your feedback on the legislature and a street sweeping snapshot that speaks for itself. Next. It's street sweeping season. If you ever wonder if moving your car is worth the hassle, we've got a photo to present without comment. No comment, just facts of what you're looking at. A viewer named Brendan sent us these photos. This is just west of City Park at 21st and Vine, and the street is clear of cars to allow for the sweeper to do its job. Some feedback tonight on the death of the assault weapons ban. A survivor of Columbine is appalled they did that, especially today. B said nothing like celebrating the anniversary of Columbine by caving into the gun lobby. Let's watch what happens in Washington, which passed that. It treads a bit on federal law, but we'll see what happens with Washington next.